Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. My name is Elliot. I'm here with the Camas Public Library. We are co-hosting this event with Naturescaping of Southwest Washington. Thank you all for coming. I think more people will be coming in as it gets going. But I just wanted to give a couple pieces of information before I turn it over to Marlene from Naturescaping to give the introduction. I wanted to let people know that this event is being recorded. And so later this week, I will send out a link that will share the recording. So if you would like to watch it again, share it with a friend, you can do that. And I also wanted to let people know, maybe you heard our conversation, but we will have a question and answer period. It'll be after Irene's presentation. So if you have any questions, we just ask that you save that for the end. You can, I'll turn on the chat function when the presentation is over, and you can type your question into the chat. I'll also come back on and do a little help with some moderating as well. Yeah, just to say that one more time, like if you have any questions, just jot them down, and then we'll have a question and answer period at the end. So I am going to turn this over now to Marlene from Naturescaping of Southwest Washington. Marlene is going to talk about the organization and give an introduction. So Marlene, how are you?
Hello, everybody. Hopefully there's a lot of our members out there, and for you non-members, we are Naturescaping of Southwest Washington. We are an organization, nonprofit organization that maintains the wildlife botanical gardens in Brush Prairie. And for those members who are with us, this is a feature benefit of your membership, which will, for the non-members, any donations would be graciously accepted. You can go to www.naturescaping.org and find donor information there. And it is my pleasure at this time to introduce Irene, who is an instructor at CASE. And for those of you who are not familiar, CASE stands for Center for Agriculture, Science, and Environmental Education, where she's been there for about 20 years. So I just wanted to, I'm trying to speak a little slowly so we still give people a little opportunity to log on. But without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Irene.
Thanks, Marlene. Appreciate that. So first, I just wanted to explain a little bit about what CASE is. I've been a teacher for 21 years, and I've spent all of those 21 years at the CASE Center, which is kind of unique. It's a really interesting and pretty amazing place to work. We are a school located on an 80-acre campus. It's a STEM school, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. And it really is a science magnet for students who really love science or love getting outside and kind of investigating the natural world. But it's pretty amazing. I do teach a unit on sustainable gardening, and we emphasize the importance of beneficial insects. So this is part of our curriculum. We also have many gardens on campus, but we have a large 3-acre organic garden that our students work in. And yeah, it's a really fun place to work. What else? A little bit about myself. Again, I've been teaching for quite a while. I've taught biology, natural resources. I'm currently teaching environmental science, which is articulated with Clark College. So students are getting college credits. I teach wildlife, an introduction to wildlife, an introduction to forestry, and I also teach English. So our program's pretty unique. We're integrated with English. So students get to, read a lot of science literature, nature and science writing, but also some of the classic literature, writings as well. So it's pretty diverse. So anyways, it's just a little bit about myself, and at this point, I will get ready with the presentation. All right, so this presentation is on beneficial insects and sustainable gardening. And here we go. All right, so what is sustainable gardening? I'm sure it's a term you've heard quite a bit, but it's gardening in a way that does not harm the earth and its inhabitants, and it really acts to enhance things instead of deplete things. It's super important right now, I think, with increasing population, with species going extinct. I think it's really important that we do our job as individuals, do the best that we can. And it's all part of a bigger picture of this green revolution, but really trying to do things more sustainably. And I think that's going to become even more or increasingly important in the coming years. But we want to reduce our carbon footprint, reduce chemicals like herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, all the things that are harmful to us, harmful to wildlife, just harmful to water quality, soil quality. And those things are really important because the soil is one of the most important things because it grows our crops, it grows our food, clothing, and everything else comes from there, and increasingly important for wildlife and ecosystems. So very important stuff. So really, environmental sustainability really has to do with good stewardship of the land. So of natural systems, of our important natural resources. But some of the concepts involved in good stewardship mean building and maintaining healthy soils. So learning how to compost is wonderful. Worm bins, different types of composting bins are all great. We have a huge composting demonstration site at Casey in partnership with the Naturescaping organization and the composters. So, Casey's a great place to come look at things. So we have gardens here, we have the Naturescaping gardens, but lots of areas to come check out and, see how to do things. And there's also some amazing classes that the Naturescaping group teaches about composting and different things. So take advantage of that. It's also about managing water wisely. So having a really good irrigation system is key. The term xeriscaping really means using plants that are drought resistant or require little water, which is always good. And some of these plants are really beautiful and they actually attract beneficial insects. So it all kind of ties together. I think we only have so much room in our landscapes and in our gardens. So really being super choosy about what we put there. So does it attract beneficial insects? Does it attract native wildlife? Is it low water? And native plants do a lot of that. And I know that's really emphasized by the Naturescaping organization. Minimizing our pollution in general, water pollution, air pollution, climate pollution, it all helps. And then definitely minimizing pesticides and using beneficial insects as a way to combat harmful pests. And that's going to be a key part of this presentation. And then the last thing is promoting biodiversity with our insects in our gardens, attracting birds to our gardens who are great for eliminating pests, but small mammals, anything that we can do. And that's really part of the Naturescaping motto, is to landscape for wildlife. So the more biodiversity, the better. Insects are so important. We really cannot live without them, literally. We need a really good balance of beneficial insects and harmful insects in our garden. We cannot just have beneficials because they really consume the harmful insects. And I'll explain a little bit more about what beneficial insects are, but beneficial insects typically consume the harmful bugs in our garden. But we need a good balance, and we need to be able to live with some harmful insects because The beneficials need to eat them, one, and it's just, they're part of the ecosystem. So they have their place. We just don't want them to get to a level that's unacceptable. Soil fertility, insects are so important to the soil. They help aerate it, they break down organic matter, and then they also break down nutrients. So plants cannot just absorb nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium instantly. They actually have to be broken down by a lot of soil organisms for them to be able to utilize those nutrients. So that's really important that we have active soil. We have really biodiverse soil, lots of different organisms in it. Again, biodiversity is really important. Insects support a wide variety of wildlife. So they're kind of the building blocks for those omnivorous animals, the animals that eat plants and anything in the kingdom Animalia. So really important. We need to have insects because they support such a wide variety of animals that we love to have in our gardens. Pollinators are so important. As we all know, I'm sure we've all heard a lot about pollinators of late, but they provide pollination services that are incredible to over 180,000 different plant species. They help pollinate and more than 1,200 crops. So essential part of, the food system. So we really, really need them. And the more help that we can give them, the better right now, because they are suffering. And I'll talk about this in a little bit, but actually farmers' yields are also decreasing right now. And so that's a big problem for farmers and for us. We've got a little picture down here of a mason bee, and I'll talk about those native bees as well. All right, so I think it's really important to talk about integrated pest management. It's a philosophy, it's a way of managing pests sustainably, because using beneficial insects is part of IPM, or integrated pest management. So I think it's good to see the bigger picture of kind of farming holistically. So it's part of a bigger process than just, using beneficial insects. But integrated pest management, or the acronym IPM, which you'll see a lot of times, is an approach to solving pest problems by really understanding the pest. So understanding how to prevent them, understanding their life cycle, but really getting a good understanding of the pest, and then preventing them from damaging what we have. So infesting, buildings, or damaging our crops, or harming animals, and just kind of interfering with our everyday life. So that is what integrated pest management is. And IPM really is meant to respond to pest problems with the most effective, least risk option. And so what that means, least risk, is really least risk to us and to other organisms. Doing and really understanding, like I said, about the insect's life cycle, so that we really understand how to get rid of it. And all of our options are kind of laid out on how to get rid of this bug with doing the least damage to our gardens and the least damage to us and the ecosystem. IPM is used only when the pest numbers exceed acceptable levels. So again, we really need to have these, these harmful insects in our garden, because they provide food for the beneficials. There's going to be a lot of insects in our garden. We want that. We just don't want the harmful insects that eat our crops and damage our plants to get, to an unacceptable level, that they're really doing too much damage. But we have to be able to accept a little bit of damage here and there. We have to sacrifice a little bit, and that should be okay. Anything that we do in IPM is meant to target just that species, so just the pest and nothing else, not the birds, or not beneficial insects, but really try to limit the damage to anything else in the environment and just isolate that one pest. So it's doing the least damage we can. All right, so one more slide about integrated pest management, because again, I think it's important to kind of see the big picture. But it uses controls, and beneficial insects are biological controls. And that's why I wanted to kind of to show the big picture of where this fits in to sustainable gardening. But there are other types of controls that we can use to get rid of pests. And when I talk about a pest, it really is, it could be a weed that you don't want in your garden. It could be an insect, any sort of pest. And a cultural control is changing the pest's environment. And so you're disrupting, you know, the way it lives, the way it moves around and consumes plants. And you're kind of altering some sort of environmental change so that it's having a hard time thriving. It could be turning undercrop residues. It could be sterilizing your tools. It could be harvesting early. It could be crop rotation. And crop rotation is excellent, and I'll talk about that more. But when you keep growing plants in the same spot, pests tend to get the word. And so what happens is you end up getting infestations. But if you rotate your crops, it's a little bit harder for the insects to keep up. And there's lots of also companion planting and things like that that are great to do as well. There's also biological controls. So it's using predators, disease, or competition to eliminate pests. And beneficial insects are great. They're a biological control. They naturally get rid of those harmful or insects that consume our beautiful plants. And goats is another example. So if you have a lot of blackberry that you want to get rid of and you don't want to spray it, or goats are great for that. They'll eat everything though. So you got to be careful. I know a lot of people that have used goats to get rid of blackberry, and they're very effective. But you have to make sure that they're tied up so that they don't get to everything else. But that's great if you have some land and you have blackberries. But it's a biological control. And so that's where a lot of what I'm going to talk today about, or this evening about, is biological controls. And then there's mechanical controls. These are physical controls. It could be trapping, prescribed burns. It could be putting tarps over weeds so they don't get sunlight. It's something physical that you do. It could be removing flower heads for seeds like dandelions. There's chemical controls, and these are always used as a last resort. So growers select the most appropriate pesticide, and everything's calibrated. It's basically a spot treatment, and it's really trying to use it as a last resort. Like, you've tried everything else and nothing else is working. And so we want to make sure that the weather's right, the timing is right, time of day, but it's definitely the right point or the right season or the right timing for life cycle. You're going to get it when it will effectively eliminate the pest. And there's just a few examples. So I'm going to get into beneficial insects to start. And there's 3 different types of beneficial insects. There's pollinators, super important. 1 out of every 3 bites of food you eat is there because of pollinators. They're amazing. And there's predatory insects. They eliminate pests in our garden by consuming. So they're predaceous. They're going to consume the harmful insects. And then there's other insects that are called parasitizers, and they lay their eggs on, in, or near harmful insects. And when the eggs hatch, the larvae consume the host. And so there's a picture down here. You've got this caterpillar, And the larvae, it looks like, have probably been laid on top of the insect. And so the larvae, when they hatch, they will consume the insect. So it's kind of a little horror show there. All right, I'd like to get into talking about some of these amazing beneficial insects. I'm sure you have all seen ladybugs and know that they are a really great beneficial ally. But ladybird beetles are very successful at controlling aphids, mealybugs, scales, spider mites. I'm sure there's other things, but they're really known for aphids. The larvae, which is this picture right here, they can consume a lot of aphids in a week, 175 to 200 per week. They eat fruit flies and other insects, but they're incredible at getting rid of aphids. And I get aphids every year, but they only tend to like a certain type of flower in my yard, so it's not that big of a deal. Lacewings is another beneficial ally. They are successful for the control of aphids, again, in peppers, tomatoes, eggplants, and other crops that we have in our garden. They can rid infestations of the Colorado potato beetle, the European red mite, mealybugs, corn earworm. I know we get a lot of that out here at Casey. Spider mites and thrips. And then down below, there's a picture of a lacewing and a picture of the lacewing larvae consuming a little larval caterpillar. But lacewings are actually pretty amazing. They've done studies that have shown that, you can buy ladybugs, and it's always good to if you buy ladybugs, to not get the wild harvested ones, but they don't, there's not a lot of research that they stay in the garden at all. They might get rid of the pest problem, but then they leave. But lacewings tend to stay around a lot longer. So if you decide to purchase lacewings to put into your garden, they've actually had a little bit more success with lacewings sticking around. All right, some other allies. Praying mantids are very cool. Always love finding them. They consume flies and crickets and moths and caterpillars, locusts and other species. This is what the cocoon looks like here. So if you ever see some of these, I believe they're in the fall and then they hatch in the spring. But they're very cool. You don't want to ever bring them inside because the heat in your house will activate the cocoon and they will hatch all over your house. And I think there's like around 200 small little mantids that will come out of it. So it's not something you want to do, but you actually can purchase these as well. But I think the better option, which I'll talk about later, is just planting certain plants that will attract these beneficial insects. And then there's spiders. We've all heard that spiders are amazing at catching things in their webs, but they're incredible. They're definitely generalists. So that means that they will eat pretty much anything. They don't discriminate. So they will consume beneficial insects and harmful insects, but they are really good. At least the insects or the spiders that spin a web are going to catch a lot of the harmful ones, like little flies and mosquitoes and things that we don't want around anyway. But they consume many flying insects. Crab spiders consume aphids, mites, small beetles. I think that's the goldenrod spider down below there on the left. And then the other one is just a common garden spider on the right. but they eat a large number of insects. A single spider can consume hundreds of small flies in one day. So always good to have around. If you ever find them in your house, I recommend you just don't smash them, but put them outside on in your garden. All right, some other probably more obscure beneficial allies that you may not have seen or heard about, but there's minute pirate bugs, and they consume aphids and spider mites and thrips, and they're really helpful for fruit trees. So if you have fruit trees, they're great. There's also the big-eyed bug, and you can see he's like stabbing or injecting that insect down there with his proboscis. And they consume aphids and leaf hoppers and lygus bugs and spider mites. They're pretty voracious predators. Ants are kind of fun to mention. They're mostly beneficial. I have them around my yard, and I've never done anything about them because I consider them beneficial, but they are great decomposers. They feed on waste, insects, dead animals, and they bring a lot of nutrients underground, and they help fertilize nearby plants. They also can bring seeds down, into their burrows, and it's almost a better chance of germinating down there with all the nutrients. They aerate the soil, which is really important. They can pollinate flowers, and they provide a lot of food for wildlife. There's also parasitic wasps and flies, like I mentioned earlier. They lay eggs inside via the proboscis or on top of the insect or nearby, so very close to where the insect is living, and it will consume the host. They are specialists, which means they're not a generalist. They don't specialize in one type of insect, but specialists do. So specialists basically have a host type. And so it may be a type of caterpillar, but basically that is their host. They can consume codling moths, Colorado potato beetles, corn earworm, cutworms, grasshoppers, hornworms, cabbage worms, tussock moths. I mean, it's a huge list of things that they will consume. And then the ants are little sugar ants, I believe, or no, those are pavement ants, I'm sorry. And then I've got a couple wasps and a fly because I also added flies in there, but that's a little parasitic fly down on the lower left, and it's called the tachnid fly. And it almost looks like a bee. And then the picture in the middle is the Trisolocus euschisti, and it's a wasp, a type of parasitic wasp that we have here. And then we also have the blue-winged wasp. His wings kind of have a blue tinge to them. The lighting's not the best, but they eat beetle grubs, and it's in the Scoliid family. So it's a type of grouping of wasps, and they are all parasitic. All right, more beneficial allies. I wanted to talk about pollinators, hoverflies. A lot of the beneficial insects, just to note, will consume nectar and pollen, at least some of the pollinators, and the parasitic wasps as well. They will consume nectar and pollen. So having flowers around that they can feed on is really important. And I do have some examples, some lists for you guys. But the larvae, they're a well-established population, can control 70 to 80% of an aphid infestation. So hoverflies are really cool. And they're what's considered a bee mimic. So it almost looks like a bee, but you can tell it's not because of the eyes. The eyes are definitely fly-like. And there's other characteristics as well. I've got some great resources for you guys. But Zeri Society is excellent, and that's what I use. And I use that with my students as well. We've done some pollinator studies here at Casey, and definitely insect collections and just understanding the importance of beneficial and harmful insects. And then I wanted to talk about pollinators too, because honeybees are great, and everybody knows about honeybees and kind of the plight of the honeybee. But I don't think that native bees are talked about as much, or not as widely understood. And they're actually more efficient at pollinating. And just an example, but 250 mason bees can pollinate 1 acre of apples, and it would take 50,000 honeybees to do the same. So they're incredibly efficient pollinators. And they're also our natives, where the honeybee is not. It's a non-native. We definitely use both, but attracting our native bees to our gardens can be a really important way of increasing pollination in general, but also increasing crop yields, and then just, making sure they have a place to thrive. Some examples would be the yellow-faced bumblebee, the western bumblebee, the mast bee, the sweat bee, the mason bee, which is very common. And I know the Naturescaping organization holds workshops on mason bees. If you're interested in, purchasing mason bees, or, buying homes for them, or understanding their life cycle or what they're all about, I know they have great workshops on that. And then the mining bee. And so from left to right, down below, starting with the bee that has kind of the green head and thorax, that is the sweat bee. And then the middle bee is the western bumblebee. And then he's on the purple flower, looks like maybe a penstamen. And then the little bee on the right coming out of the ground is a mining bee. And those are solitary bees. They're really interesting. They don't live in a hive or community. They're just solitary bees. And then, as you know, I just kind of had to talk about this, but pollinators are in decline, and that's why it's so important to provide food and habitat for them right now, because, I've given you some statistics, but they're so important for pollinating the foods that we eat, and obviously the clothes that come from the foods and all of that. So really important, but many populations are declining, and it's because of loss in feeding and nesting habitats. And then in addition, pollution, chemicals is a huge one for them. Disease and changes in climatic patterns are all contributing to their populations. And they've done a lot of studies with chemicals. And it's this new type of chemical or chemicals that they are using, which are called systemics. And basically the pesticides are systemic in the plant. And so it's in all parts. It's not just a pesticide that's being applied to the tops or the flowers or the leaves. It's inside every piece of plant tissue. And those seem to be the most harmful for pollinators right now. And it seems to lower their immune system, which is, anytime you're lowering a species' immune system, they're going to have a hard time coping with other things like climate conditions or disease. I thought this was really interesting, just a little bit of statistics here, but this was a research study. It's actually a really recent one that was done through Rutgers University. I think it was Nova Scotia. And they looked at like 130 different farms. And they also, in the United States, and then they also looked at farms in Europe and other areas, and they looked at crop yields and kind of, numbers of pollinators present. And basically what they discovered is that across the United States, crop yields are declining along with a lack of pollinators. So there's a direct correlation between lack of pollinators and declining crop yields, which can be really problematic, not only for farmers, but for us as far as food supply within an increasing population. Providing native bee habitat can increase these yields and can also help increase populations of native bees if we have the right food for them. And so I'm excited to show you guys some lists of plants that you can plant in your yard that are natives and also pollinator attracting and beneficial insect attracting as well, not just pollinators. And this is a picture of mason bee. And some of you might have mason bee homes already in your yards, but they're excellent at pollinating. All right, natural remedies for pests. So if we plant, different crops, we can attract beneficial insects or provide the right habitat, I guess, which is excellent. And I'll give you guys some tools to look at. We can purchase beneficial insects. I don't think that's the best answer, but you definitely can if you have an infestation. I definitely recommend lace wings if you're going to do that. There's insecticidal soaps, sulfurs, and natural sprays can also be used as insecticides or even better as a fungicide. But these are just some natural remedies you can try as part of IPM, trying everything first before we actually use a harmful chemical that can harm some of our amazing wildlife that we have in our gardens. Bird houses and feeders. Birds will eat many types of insects. They're really good at getting rid of insects. So bird feeders, bird houses, bat houses are great too. If you can put up a bat house, I know they have workshops on that in Clark County. Bats are great pollinators, but they also consume many flying insects like moths, beetles, flies, and mosquitoes. And just a little fun fact, over on the right there, I have a picture of a little brown bat. And little brown bats can consume 60 medium-sized moths or 1,000 mosquito-sized flies. So, and that's just in a night. So that's pretty amazing. And that might be something or an option if you live in the country. And then amphibian habitat. So amphibians is definitely something that I've studied professionally, and then definitely with my students. We've been doing a population study in our ponds at Casey for 17 years. And so definitely know quite a bit about amphibians, but and creating amphibian habitat. But if you can create a small pond, I know there's a couple examples in the naturescaping gardens at Casey. If you wander through, you can take a look at those. But even a really small little water feature or pond will attract amphibians. So I know I have found 4 different types of egg masses in one of the small ponds in the naturescaping gardens. I think it's like the Northwest Garden. So 4 different kinds, that's crazy, and just a small little pond. And then there's actually like a little water feature. I think it's in, maybe it's the Mason Garden or it's like a country garden, but there's 2 different kinds in that water feature there. So I know we have long-toed salamanders and tree frogs that lay their eggs in there. So it's great habitat. They're around, they'll consume a lot of insects. Yeah, they like to feast on beetles and crickets and flies and slugs and ants and mosquitoes, which is awesome because we all do not like mosquitoes. They are a species that carries so much disease. So it's great to have a lot of different things, birds and amphibians eating those guys. And even just also, besides a small water feature, putting logs or like little pieces of wood to line trails. You know, amphibians need a water source to breed, but they leave the water source in the spring. They only go there for a small amount of time just to breed. And then they're looking for forest habitat. So logs and trees and shrubs, they definitely will use those if you put them in your yard. All right, so how to attract beneficial insects? So provide food for them. Many types of blooming plants. So many adults will feed on the nectar and pest insects, call those insectary plants, and scatter them or plant a border. You can mulch, you can put straw down, leaves, brush piles, rock piles. Hedgerows are great for also attracting small mammals and birds, and definitely will also protect if people, you know, in your neighborhood or neighbors are spraying, it kind of protects your area from getting any drift. It's also great ways for animals to kind of migrate or move around if you have hedgerows or buffer strips. But they all provide habitat for beneficial insects. So really having areas where they can overwinter and that kind of protects them is great for attracting. They do need water as well. So having a water feature out, spraying your yard, you know, all of those things will provide some water for it. Ladybugs. So for specifically attracting ladybugs, they prefer large petal flowers that are typically white and yellow. And then some specifics, they like angelica, white lace flower, yarrow, chamomile, coreopsis, clover, and alfalfa. And then for attracting minute pirate bugs, mulch and debris, like I mentioned earlier, they prefer flowers because they like the pollen, but marigolds, cosmos, spearmint, fennel, caraway, and goldenrod. And marigolds are pretty special too because they will attract beneficial insects, but they will also discourage harmful predators or harmful insects that want to eat your crops. So companion planting with marigolds is excellent because it'll attract the ones we want and discourage the ones we don't want in our garden. So I definitely recommend planting marigolds, you know, every year. Lacewings to attract lacewings, coreopsis, cosmos, angelica, caraway, alfalfa, clover. And then the pictures down below are, that's a cosmo flower. They're very beautiful. And then angelica. And angelica is really interesting because it's an herb. It's an aromatic herb. I believe it's used for seasoning and it's in vermouth. So it's kind of interesting to plant, but it's also has a very cool looking umbel type flower. All right, then next I wanted to talk about sustainable gardening. So some different aspects of sustainable gardening. So mulching and composting, laying down bark dust, compost straw. I talked about this a little bit in the last slide, but it attracts those beneficial insects. It reduces weeds and water runoff. So it's kind of doing a bunch of different things. And you can leave leaves on the ground as another option. And then composting as well. So by composting, we're adding nutrients to the soil. If we have a composting area on our property, then we can add that, you know, compost to our flower beds or our landscaping beds. And compost adds fertility to the soil. And by fertility, I mean, you know, there's lots of different organisms in it. It's living soil. It's got fungi, bacteria, protozoa, insects. It's really alive because it is. There's lots of different organisms in it. But the more that we can feed the soil, the better it's going to produce. And actually, the more minerals are going to be in our foods that we eat. So it's not, it's great for the soil, but it's great for us as well. And then it definitely recycles waste. So instead of just throwing food into the garbage and it going to the dump, we're actually using it to improve the soil and improve the health of our soil so that we benefit from it, from whatever we grow, and our plants benefit as well. All right, I added this in here because, I mean, we do live in a rural area, and probably a lot of you have raised beds at least, and that counts as a garden. You may have a bigger space, and that's great. But crop rotation is great on a large scale, but it's also really great on a small scale. So rotating crops and having a lot of diversity, but planting a variety of crops can have a lot of benefits, including healthier soil and improved pest control, and that's really key. So crop diversity practices include intercropping, so or companion planting, but growing a mix of crops in the same area. Sometimes they help benefit each other. They might give a nutrient. It might help detract harmful insects. And then rotating crops to prevent pests and nutrient deficiencies is always good, because definitely some crops are going to be heavy nitrogen. They're going to really take a lot of nitrogen from your soil, like corn is an example. And so rotating corn so you don't deplete nitrogen from one bed, and then you'll find that nothing really grows well in that bed. And then also, like I talked about before, kind of moving your crops around year to year, or even in the same season. I know I plant a lot of lettuce early in the spring, and then I try to plant in another area later. But just kind of rotating things so that insects don't become embedded in a certain area, and then they end up being a real problem. So if you move things around, the insects have to move around too. And so it takes them a bit to catch up. So that's always good to rotate things in your garden. And then this is for small gardens as well, but cover cropping is excellent. Clover is an example, hairy vetch, field pea, winter wheat, radish, mustard. They're all really great to plant because we harvest our crops, but then they're not really used. So if you have even raised beds are great to plant a cover crop. And then not only will you prevent soil erosion, but it also, I know clover is one of the plants that can attract beneficial insects. So not only are you preserving your soil, you're attracting beneficial insects. And then also some of these plants will provide a lot of nitrogen when they die. So if you're, for example, planting corn and it's pulling up a lot of nitrogen, you know, if you plant clover and different things, it'll bring that nitrogen back into your soil. It will also keep weeds in check and reduce the need for herbicides. If you cover it with a plant, then a lot of your weedy species won't be able to come in. So it's doing like 4 different things. So cover cropping is amazing. And we typically use a mix at Casey. We use a lot of clover, We've used wheat, we've used mustard, we used a lot of different things, but we typically almost always use clover. And like I said, clover is excellent because it's actually one of the plants that attracts beneficial insects. All right, I just wanted to talk about this too, as far as, because this is an agricultural area, but low till or no till for sustainable gardening. I know a lot of people have small gardens at home. It may be bigger where you're doing traditional plowing, like maybe you have an acre or half acre, and you have a tractor. But traditional plowing prepares the fields, and we have used this for years at Casey. It can prevent weed problems, but can actually cause a lot of soil loss and compaction. And there's a picture of farmers holding two different pieces of soil from two different areas. And his hand on the right that you're looking at is traditional plowing, and then the hand on the left is holding a piece of soil from a low till area. Which brings me to the next option, which is better. We actually have tried this at Casey and it's great. We have done a reduced till method. We have not tried no till, but we've done one pass. And actually maybe 1 year we did no till. Oops, I'm gonna have to move around. My lights go out if I don't move, so you have to give me a minute. Sorry about that. So I think 1 year we did no till, and basically you don't do anything except for, you know, kind of, we used a hoe and we scraped, you know, the different, you know, the dead leaves and plants to the side and just planted, and it actually did really well. But we have also typically done reduced till, and we did like one pass instead of typically 3 passes with the tiller. And that was great. It does reduce erosion and it does improve the soil health. So doing less is actually better for the soil. And then this is a key component of sustainable gardening as well, is using native plants and xeriscaping. And I'll start with native plants. There's so many native plants that I could talk about, but I just gave one example because I'm going to give some other examples as well later on. But shrubs like ocean spray is great. And I'm focusing on the plants that are natives and beneficial insect attracting. And so I'm trying to be really selective with the plants that I choose to share with you. There's an amazing list of native plants out there that you can plant in your garden, and they're great. And some of them are really great for attracting pollinators and different things. But ocean spray is this white shrub right here, and it's very pretty. But it's a Pacific Northwest native, and it attracts many different wildlife species. It's a long list, including beneficial insects and almost all of the beneficial insects. And it's very low maintenance. So typically with native plants, you know, you need to water it when you put it in the ground and until the roots take hold, and then you really don't have to do much to it. So you can prune it if you want, you don't have to, but native plants are very low maintenance and they're very easy to take care of. And the animals around here have co-evolved with native plants, so it's what they prefer for their food, especially birds and small mammals. And then an example of xeriscaping, which is a term used for like planting drought resistant plants that really require little water, which is I think always good when we're thinking about conserving water. But Idaho fescue, Canada wild rye, and other grasses are typically drought resistant. I just chose these two because they are also, they attract a lot of different kinds of beneficial insects. So I think that's really cool. And they're actually really cool looking. I love the look of grasses in a landscape. And I believe this is Idaho fescue. Another key component of sustainable gardening is having a good irrigation system. And we have tried a lot of different kinds of irrigation systems over the years. We've used soaker hoses, which I don't recommend. They're expensive and they tend to break very easily. That's been our results here at Casey. We've used PVC type irrigation. It's great, but if you bury it, it tends to get a lot of leaks. What we currently use right now, which I'm in love with, that's why I'm sharing it, because it's so easy and it's inexpensive. And it's a system by Rainbird, and you can get it at, I think, Lowe's and Home Depot. But basically it's like this, you can get it in a roll, this brown tubing. I think this is like 20 bucks. And it's so simple. You just lay it out, and it has little holes, I think spaced like maybe every 6 inches. And it's just got these elbows and these fittings that has threads to tie right into like a hose. And God, it's so easy. And you can even put timers on it. But it's really a great system. This is definitely what we're going to keep at Casey. It's so easy. Our students put it together every spring. It's just a big project. We go out to the gardens and we lay out hoses, and the kids put it together, and we can get it put together in just a couple days, a 3-acre organic garden. So it's very easy to use. And like I said, it's very inexpensive and it's pretty sturdy and it's easy to store. So we just zip tie it just like this, just like the way you got it, the way you bought it. And it's very efficient watering. It just waters, by the roots. So water, it's not being wasted on the leaves or anywhere else. Sprinkler systems are not the best either, and we've used those for many years as well, but they tend to water a lot of areas that are not needing water. And so it's not the best for water conservation. And then also time of day is really important when you're watering. I think early in the morning or late in the evening where you're not getting a lot of evaporation. So it's able to soak into the ground and really, get to the roots, the plant can utilize it. But I definitely recommend this system. This is an awesome system. And it's again called a Rainbird. But there's lots of different types of irrigation systems out there. You can play around with them. You can see what you like. And this is just my experience, but this is what has been very effective here at Casey. And then this is just kind of a fun, I think, sustainable way of, I think it definitely fits into sustainable gardening. I think anytime we can reduce, reuse, recycle, using old lumber to make beds. I mean, I think that's always great. Using old lumber to make bird feeders, but definitely repurposing things as part of that whole kind of sustainability movement. And then I thought this would be fun, kind of adding in seed collecting. Seed collecting is a great sustainable way to, keep seeds around and definitely varieties that you've loved in the past. It's great if you have excess seeds. I mean, definitely the birds are going to love these too, so you can leave some out for the birds, but you can definitely collect them. I had a friend give me a couple bags of different varieties of sunflowers that were great. He had so much. And I think this is really great if you're wanting to plant things, very specific things that are very expensive to buy. And Definitely the species, it's going to be different depending on the species, how easy it is to collect the seeds, how small the seeds are, and things like that. But I would start with something big and easy, like sunflower or bush beans. We have planted dry edible beans almost every year at Casey. And, you know, we have so many, and dry edible beans are like the bean mixes that you see at the store that are like, you know, 7-bean soup or something. They're like that. So we always have tons left over, and that's a great way to, and they're kind of fun to dry and then pick apart and put into bags. They're fun. We have our students do it sometimes. But anyways, pretty simple to extract for some species and store. They just have to be dry and clean, relatively clean, so they don't get moldy. But this is a really fun project to do at home with your kids. So I know our students love it. And that is the end of my presentation. So I've included some resources for you guys, and the Oregon State University Extension encouraging beneficial insects in your garden is great. I definitely included some of those in the presentation. The Pollinator Partnership, Selecting Plants for Pollinators Guide is a great resource for planting. And then the one that I think is outstanding is the Xeres Society, and that's habitat planning for beneficial insects. And it has so much information. It has all of the beneficial insects, including all the pollinators, how to identify them, what to plant. It's basically how to create your whole garden where it's all sustainable and you're really you know, providing a lot of habitat for beneficial insects. So it's a totally different way of managing landscapes. And Xeres Society is excellent. They also have pollinator guides. They have citizen science projects that you can do. I've had my students participate in some pollinator studies here at Casey, and we've used the Xeres Society protocols and data collection information that they have, and definitely their ID guides are excellent. So there's some resources for you guys. And so I think at this point, if people have questions, we can chat.
Yeah, and I just want to hop on. Thank you so much, Irene. I wanted to remind people, in case they missed the introduction, that the chat is now live, and so you can type your questions into the chat box. You should see an icon at the bottom of your Zoom window, and feel free to type any questions you have. And I see there is the Q&A as well. So there's actually a couple methods for asking questions. And you know, just to start, I did see someone type a question in the Q&A, and the question is, what is the lifespan of ladybugs?
The lifespan, I'm actually not sure about the lifespan. I'm sorry. I don't have all the insects. I think it's longer than, I don't think it's super short. I know some of them are like, you know, 40 days, but I think it could be longer for ladybugs. I just don't know that answer to that. I'm sorry.
And then we just had one come through here. It says, can you keep the irrigation system out all year?
I'm sure you could. I mean, it's plastic. We do not. We only grow crops spring through fall. And then we definitely till and cover crop is what we do out here. But we have a 3-acre garden. So that's what we're doing. But it's plastic. I believe you could. The only thing is it gets kind of hard in the gardens that we have with the weeds. So, because we do stake the irrigation down, but if you have a really small you know, if you're talking about a small scale piece, I definitely think you could keep it out. It's pretty hardy material.
And we got another question through the chat that says, when do you plant cover crops? In fall after plants have been harvested, or can you grow clover around plants in a raised bed during the growing season?
You can grow it anytime, honestly. I mean, except for the winter, I mean, we, like I said, harvest. We have a lot of things growing in our garden. We have a really diverse garden. So by the time everything is done harvesting in our gardens here, you know, we're into fall, and that's when we plant cover crops. And then we leave them on all winter. And then, you know, till again before, or prepare the garden for planting in the spring, but you can leave cover crops on for a long time. You can definitely plant cover crops in the summer. So they can be like buffer strips, because clover was one of the plants that attracts beneficial insects. It also can provide nitrogen to the soil. So it's a great plant to plant in a strip next to, you know, different crops. Yeah, it's great. So definitely you can do that all year long.
Have a kind of a comment question here. It says, how to build habitat for beetles that eat slugs, which is a big problem here. Also, I think marigolds also attracts slugs, right? Question mark. I don't know if you see that one.
I'm not sure about attracting slugs. I haven't heard that, although I do know that they are considered a plant that you would plant to detract, you know, the common insects that eat crops. But I don't know about slugs in particular. But I do know that if you want to increase habitat for, I think that's beetles. Beetles, you know, mulch is great because that's going to provide habitat for them for overwinter. Mulch is wonderful. Bark dust, you can create little berms for them, but those will all help them overwinter.
Have another question. Says, if you put cover crops in, how do you get rid of them come spring?
So we plant them in the fall, and then over the winter, a lot of them die, and then we just till them into the soil, or you can remove them, but they do have to be removed or broken up and then decomposed in your garden. And so you can let them decompose.
And how do you mix in compost if you are trying no or low till?
Oh, that's a good question. You can add it to the top. So I tend to put compost in my garden early in the spring and just kind of let it decompose into the soil. And then I definitely don't, I have garden beds at my house. I mean, I have raised beds, and I just kind of mix it in, like kind of aerate the soil a little bit. I definitely don't use any sort of tilling mechanism in my own yards. And we actually don't add a lot of compost to our big garden. We have in the past. It's just a huge endeavor to add compost to a 3-acre organic garden. So we have done it in the past, and we actually brought in like truckloads of compost, and it took a long time to mix it in. But basically we just laid it over the top of the soil, and then we just had students help us mix it in with garden hose. We didn't till it in or anything. We just kind of mixed it a little bit, and it just will decompose right into the soil.
And this is a related question. In a small bed, 8 by 10, would you turn the dirt over, or would you do no turning over?
I think it's fine to turn stuff over, kind of aerate. We just don't want to over aerate the soil or overturn the soil too much. And that's kind of what rototilling does, is it might be too much for the soil is what we're learning. So, you know, letting things completely decompose. So when our crops are finished growing, like tomatoes or whatever we're growing in our little raised beds at home, just let them die in your garden and decompose into the soil over the winter. And a lot of that will be mostly decomposed by the time spring comes around. And then what I do is just kind of mix it in early and then add compost and kind of mix it all around. And then it's perfect for planting come, May.
And I think that there is one other question about if the PowerPoint would be available later for review. And I did want to remind people this is recorded, and so the recording will be sent out to everyone who has registered for this event. And then we have a new question, which is, how do you deal with tomato blight? I hear that it is a fungus, that it is from fungus in soil.
That's a good question. I don't have a lot of insight on tomato blight, except for if it's present on your tomato plants, you can spray sulfur, you can even make a sulfur spray at home. If your plants if it's getting into your plants and you have an actual blight on your plant. But I don't know about getting rid of the fungus in the soil. I would think it probably wouldn't be a problem unless it was present on your plants, if it was harming your plants or rotting your plants in some way.
And do we have any other questions? Just to remind people, you can type your question into the chat function. There's a chat icon at the bottom of the Zoom window.
If I might interrupt, people who have an abundance of vegetables and fruits and vegetables in their yard, please contact me and I'll be happy to take them off your hands. Just a joke, but not really.
Any other questions? I'd also want to say that we're getting a lot of comments that say thank you for the presentation. It was great.
You're welcome. My pleasure. This has been really fun. I mean, this is my first webinar. I'm used to just teaching high school students, but I think it's good information for a lot of people. And definitely the Naturescaping group has a lot of presentations that are right along this, that go into more specifics about some of these topics. So they're great.
Thank you, Irene. We appreciate that.
You're welcome. This has been a lot of fun. Oh, and just one more thing, just kind of talking about native plants. I have to give a plug for the Naturescaping group and Casey. We do an annual plant sale, and they sell some great native perennials and fruit trees. And then Casey specializes in propagating and selling native plants. And so if you're ever in need of different native plants, we sell them, and they're pretty inexpensive. They're, $3, $5, and it goes to support student projects and things like that. And so you can check us out at our website, kc.battlegroundps.org, and you can call and make an appointment and come out and select some plants and look through our greenhouse. But we definitely have native plants, and they're quite a bit cheaper than what you would find, elsewhere. And the Naturescaping does too during their annual plant sale.
If there are no other questions, maybe I should give a last call here to see if there's any other questions. Oh, it says someone asked if you could please say the website again.
Yeah, it's Casey, CASEE .battlegroundps.org. And that's the Casey website. There's lots of cool information on the website, but there should be a contact for purchasing native plants as well. And just our number should be on there, and you can just give us a call and we can set up an appointment.
I'll also include that website when I send out the follow-up email for everyone who registered.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, well, Marlene, did you have any final comments or questions?
I don't know if everybody saw it, but I did type in to the chat or Q&A, whichever, about people who want to purchase mason bee cocoons. We will sell some at our plant sale, but our bee herder, Brick Franklin, is also selling them out of his home. He will arrange social distancing. You can arrange with him to come over and pick them up. His email address is capt.brigg, BRIGG, @gmail.com. He was a captain in the Coast Guard. That's where the captain part comes from. So yeah, actually by late April, it's almost too late, depending on the weather this year, to set them out. So definitely, if you want to purchase mason bees to help pollinate your fruit trees, especially, contact him. It's also on our Facebook page, I believe, Naturescaping Facebook page. So contact him, and he'll be happy to sell you the cocoons and/or shelters and other supplies if you need them.
And Marlene, you may want to put that in the chat. I'm putting the KC website, and then I'm also putting our phone number in case people just want to call and make an appointment to purchase plants.
Yeah, I did actually put it in there earlier, but
there's
yes,
a chance.
it's in there near the beginning. It's in there.
You know, if you wouldn't mind, I think it looks like that might have gone to just the panelist.
Oh, shoot.
There's a
Okay.
little drop down. If you wouldn't mind sending that again to all attendees.
Yes, got it. Okay, no problem. And I don't.
I might have done the same thing. Okay.
I think so, yeah.
I actually don't know right now. You know, you'll have to call and see about. With COVID, I don't know if we're allowed to have people on campus right now, but as soon as we are able, we might be going back to hybrid learning very soon. So we may not be able to get you plants this minute, but it's not the best time to plant anyways. So come this spring, we will definitely be able to accommodate you. There we go. There's the number and our website.
I'm just gonna send that information that you sent earlier, Marlene, the contact information for Brig.
Yep, I just did.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
I definitely recommend mason bees. They're wonderful. They don't sting, and they're excellent pollinators, and you've got a contact to purchase them and put them in your yard. Be great if everyone had a mason bee home in their yard.
Okay. Well, Marlene, any? Oh, actually, right. Looks like there might be. Oh, someone did ask the sale date, the plant sale date.
And you know, at this point, I would just say kind of keep your eye out on our website. Members will be getting information in the monthly newsletter, but because of the COVID, we also may have restricted timetables, and so members will be getting priority treatment. If you are interested in becoming a member, again, check out our website at naturescaping.org. You can join in, and then you'd be included in that early attendance. So probably right now, that's the best advice I could give you, but we may open up at the end of April, so that would be the 25th and 26th, I believe, Saturday and Sunday. But just be aware that it may be open up at least the first weekend to members only. So a great excuse to join.
Well, I think, on that note, just want to say thank you again, Irene, for this wonderful presentation. Marlene, thank you so much for coordinating this. Any other final words from you, Irene or Marlene?
Stay tuned for next month. Stay tuned for details. Again, check our website. If you're a member, you'll get the information in the newsletter. I'm working on the next class. And I too want to thank Irene. And if you didn't see those comments, Irene, many people commented on your soothing manner and voice, and I agree. And Elliot at Campus Library, thank you again so much. You've been great. And we appreciate the Campus Library and everything they've done to help naturescaping through this challenging time.
Yes, thank you very much for having me tonight. It was really fun. Appreciate it.
All right, well, I hope everyone has a good night, and we'll be on the lookout for snow, right?
That's right. All right, take care, everyone.
All right, have a
Bye,
good
everyone.
evening. Bye.
Bye.